We are shown a girl named Kimberly Corman saying goodbye to Mr. Corman because she is going on vacation with her friends. After they left, Mr. Corman saw the oil there and thought the car they were using had a leak. While on their way, they are surprised by an old woman who seems to be about to say something, but it is canceled because of the used cans falling on the street. After that, they began to enter the toll road, and Mr. Corman called to check the car immediately because it seemed to have leaked oil. While using marijuana, suddenly they are surprised to see a police car approaching from behind, making Kimberly panic and almost hit by a timber truck. Out of fear, the marijuana was landed on a woman's car that almost caught fire, while from behind appeared a high-speed motorcycle, and a police car continued to move without realizing if there were other drug users. Once behind a timber transport truck, the policeman's drink falls, and the angel of death begins to work. It turns out that all the incidents are visions of the future from Kimberly, and it is proven that when an old woman is there, like deja vu, Kimberly, who is scared, immediately realizes that the previous events will happen. She tried to convince them that something terrible was going to happen, and of course, no one believed her. Not wanting anything to happen, she tries to save everyone up there by blocking the road. She is very sure that they will die in an accident, like in the previous visions. Officer Burke, who saw this, immediately got out of the car and questioned what was going on. Kimberly explained that if there were going to be an accident involving everyone on the street, of course, Officer Burke did not believe what this girl said. While in the back, everyone began to get upset, feeling very disturbed. Then, she saw the wooden truck that was the cause of the accident that made this girl even more panicked, asking that Officer Burke immediately stop the large truck that had just passed at high speed. Unfortunately, it was too late because the accident really happened in front of them, by horribly destroying all the vehicles behind it, like what Kimberly saw. Finally, everyone who was there survived not involved in a tragic accident. Then she saw a notification board, 180 feet, which is their distance from the crash site, which is the same number on the aircraft code in Final Destination 1. Arriving quickly, Burke pulls Kimberly because there is another truck passing at high speed, but unfortunately all the friends in the car must be killed, hit until destroyed. All of them who survived the accident were taken to the police station. Kimberly explained that this incident was similar to the plane incident that occurred in Final Destination 1, because a man who could see the future when the plane exploded after takeoff. Luckily, he and several people got out before the incident really happened and finally survived. But after that, they were hunted by Angel of Death, one by one at a time. That ends horribly. She believed they will experience the same thing because all of them been on the death list in sequence. Some people take jokes that are not funny, that do not need to be seriously because they have to go and just waste time. The scene shifted to one of the survivors on Route 23. A man enters the apartment room, throwing stale noodles through the window because Hungry Evan intends to warm up the food that seems delicious. Suddenly, a gust of wind that out of nowhere made a plastic toy into the food and unknowingly immediately put into the microwave. Evan, who has just won the lottery for $250,000, tries on a new watch, but suddenly he is surprised to make a gold ring fall into the sinkhole. When Evan tries to retrieve it, his hand gets stuck in the hole because of the watch. Things get more chaotic when the fire began to bigger. Until finally he managed to escape without a watch. Any attempt was made unsuccessfully to extinguish the fire. Then Evan had to save himself out through the window and down the emergency stairs that initially seemed stuck. After successfully getting off, Evan slips the stale noodles that were before, making fall and... Officer Burke searches for information about the plane crash in Final Destination 1, and all the survivors end up with more gruesome deaths. Alex is the last victim, while Clear Rivers is the only one alive to date. They watch the news on television about a highway accident that killed many people. Then the shocking news about the death of Evan Lewis, a lottery winner who was killed by a burning apartment fire escape. Here they start to think what Kimberly's talking about is really happening. That night, Kimberly feels anxious and remembers about someone who survived in a plane crash. She seeks information about a woman named Clear Rivers in Final Destination 1 who is currently somewhere. Then, the next day, Kimberly goes to meet Clear at a place to rehabilitate people who have mental disorders. Upon arrival, she was escorted by a nurse to a special room that must be sterile from any object, even fake nails, with the picture of Johnny's sins. In the isolation room, Kimberly meets Clear, a woman and the only survivor of the plane crash where the angel of death is still waiting. Kimberly tries to find information about the people who survived the Route 23 car accident. Will they die? Зрение почистването на ангела на смъртта ще се скрие във вързията, в която се случи инцидента. Макар и Кимбърли да си спомня всичкия смъртен ред, когато видя the shadow of the past could change due to the events when she was rescued by Officer Burke. Then the death sequence will reserve, and Kimberly is the last man who will die because the death sequence jumps on Evan, who has now been killed. In the end, Kimberly asks Clear for help so that she can escape the situation, but not because she doesn't want to help. Clear is too afraid to leave the room because she might die because the angel of death is always waiting. So she leaves disappointed. After arriving home, Officer Burke had waited, explaining that he would gather all the survivors of the Route 23 incident in an apartment. Kimberly suddenly sees a shadow of pack dove that may be a clue when the angel of death will carry out the task as told by Clear, and thinks Nora and Timmy's next victims are related to pigeons. Without wasting time, they must leave immediately before death complete the task. Elsewhere, Clear realizes that it's impossible to be here forever, and thinks that dying now or later is no different than letting someone else experience something as horrible as Evan. Nora and Timmy are in a dentist clinic. While Timmy's undergoing a dental examination by the dentist, without them knowing death is there showing the aquarium hose in the room leaking, suddenly the dove hit the glass several times, making the dentist unable to concentrate, and went to catch the pigeon, while the water continued to flow close to the electrical equipment, causing shorting, damaging the equipment, and the angel of death began fishing with rubber fish bait. Luckily, the doctor's assistant saved Timmy from a rubber toy. After coming out of the clinic, they see Kimberly, who warns about the pigeons and after the incident, Officer Burke said, if Nora could not attend in the apartment as it is still grieving the death of her son. At home, they still do not believe in the incident, hoping that no more deaths come to them. Unexpectedly, Clear is there to invite to see an old friend of a mortician who almost every day dealing with death. Clear's goal to get back to asking questions about how to stop death went unanswered while in Final Destination 1. According to him, in fact, death cannot be cheated, and only new life can defeat death. Also, to always be aware of all the signs that will appear like a shadow before death arrives. On the way, they stopped at a gas station talking about a message from the Undertaker about every sign of death. Kimberly suddenly got a real visions of death, to be able to feel her mouth filled with water like being drowned. She thought if someone's gonna die, trapped in a white van that's drowning in a lake. They remember a pregnant woman driving a white van on Route 23. And Clear said it was possible that if the woman had given birth to a baby, the death sequence could have been erased because a new life would have emerged that defeated death, as the Undertaker had said. As a police officer, Officer Burke easily tracked down the location of a pregnant woman named Isabella. After successfully obtaining information, immediately asked for the help of other police to find the owner of the white van. As agreed, they gather at the apartment, starting to talk about all things related to the next victim, especially Nora, who has just lost Timmy because she thinks she will have a turn that will die. Since only Kimberly can see the signs of death, they are given a phone call to make it easier to communicate. But Eugene still does not believe, and all this is just nonsense. Hence the death of a little show off what is called horror. Isabel was arrested on suspicion that the van was a stolen vehicle. Returning to the apartment, Nora felt tired and desperate because sooner or later death will come because her husband and her son have been waiting in heaven. Also, Eugene felt the same. Then they both left the apartment. While Rory is trying to store things in the warehouse and looks frightened by what he sees, that might cause death and even make a mess, so that some items fall, showing a shadow like a man with a hook, that maybe this is a sign of death. Realizing that something is wrong, they go after Nora and Eugene. While the two are in the elevator with the old man carrying the hook behind, Nora is surprised when the phone call goes off, unaware that the angel of death is there. Although Clear and Kat have arrived there, they are too late if Nora cannot escape death. Officer Burke is informed that Isabel has been detained at the police station, and Eugene, who returns in fear, showing a frustrated face, immediately steals a gun from Burke, intending to commit suicide. But the gun does not seem to work because it is not time for Eugene to die. Although when checked, the gun is really complete with 6 bullets. While Clear and Kat return after playing paint color, impossible.
That's impossible.
The next day, they go to meet Isabel at the police station, while Isabel is upset to find that the white van is not a stolen vehicle. The real reason for the arrest was Officer Burke's request for Isabel to be in a safe place. Isabel suddenly felt that she wanted to give birth soon because of the contractions. This situation made the police panic because all vehicles were used for patrols, so he immediately used Isabel's car to take her to the hospital. On the way, they talked about something where each of them turned out to have cheated death, and all of that is related to the plane incident in Final Destiny 1, while they didn't realize that the car was wearing cheap tires for $5 until it finally messed up and almost hit Isabel's white van, and they ended up on a trip to a farm. Kimberly and the others survived, but unfortunately, Kat was pinned, unable to move, and Eugene was injured in the chest. Isabel forced the police to immediately go to the hospital because they could not stand it rather than help them. So before leaving, the police officers immediately gave emergency information to other officers. The situation is very chaotic because Eugene's condition is very critical and Kat is trapped in the car because the wood that penetrates the car door is also a pipe, very tasty sharp. The son of a farm owner named Brian tries to help to pull wood, but to no avail. Patrolling police and an ambulance that had arrived immediately evacuated Eugene to be taken to the hospital, as well as the press vehicle that wanted to get news almost hit Brian, who was saved by Rory, who, without them knowing if the press car had a leak in the tank, so that gasoline flowed to the car that was currently where Kat was trapped inside, while Burke was informed that Isabel had been taken to the hospital. Rescuers who had already arrived tried to evacuate the smoking Kat. It turns out that the Angel of Death has been waiting there to finish off Kat and Rory horribly. Realizing they are in danger because the death sequence continues, they immediately go to the hospital. On the way, Kimberly gets a visions and explains that the visions is in the hospital related to a doctor named Dr. Kalarian strangling someone. She assumes that Dr. Kalarian will kill Isabel. After arriving there, they must immediately discover the existence of Kalarajan, who had previously appeared in the visions. Moving to Eugene, who is being treated at the same hospital, he watched news about Kat and Rory's deaths. Then the Angel of Death enters without permission, revealing his true fear. Officer Burke manages to find Dr. Kalarian in the hospital hallway, while the Angel of Death is still busy bullying Eugene. They finally arrived at the room and saw that Isabel had managed to born the baby safely. In another room, Eugene finally survived Frum's death after the medical device returned to function. They assume that with the birth of the baby, the death list has been deleted, and Clear feels that this is all over. Kimberly suddenly sees Isabella's visions, who turned out to be a survivor on Route 23 and was not included in the death list. Then the birth of the baby had nothing to do with her. In other words, the death list was still running, unexpectedly. She remembered who was in the white van with an injured hand condition. So Clear immediately looked for Eugene, and when arrived, she opened the door. Suddenly, the explosion killed Egwene, and Clear horribly roasted to death. Kimberly was in shock and realized her hand was injured. As in the previous premonition, she realized when she saw Dr. Kalarian pushing the EKG machine and the white ambulance that had just arrived. Then she had a plan. Whisper to Burke to find Dr. Kalarian, while she immediately left the hospital carrying an ambulance to plunge into the lake. This is done in order to be able to cheat death by drowning like the second plane that was once described by John in Final Destination 1. Officer Burke, who managed to get out immediately, jumped into the lake to save Kimberly, who looked out of breath and appeared of visions of all the incident from the beginning to the process of death of survivors on Route 23. Finally, Kimberly came back to life because of the help of Dr. Kalarian. Burke explains that Kimberly is dead for 1 minute, which means she has had a new life, and the death list is over after cheating death. A few weeks later, the owner of the farm named Mr. Gibbons invited them to lunch in the summer, and Kimberly thanked them with it. As Brian goes to check on the barbecue, Mr. Gibbons tells that Brian has been rescued by Rory. Knowing this, Kimberly and Burke become worried. Finally, the roasting machine explodes with Brian, and a piece of warm hand is ready to serve. Final Destination 2 is over. I am Fox, and thanks for watching.